Hello and welcome to today's Cambridge University Press ELT webinar. I'm Jenny McLew-Collins and I'll be moderating today's session along with my colleagues Stuart Vinney and Jenny Turnbull. During the webinar, you'll be able to hear our speaker, David Valente, and to see his slides, but you won't be able to see David himself. You won't need a microphone. If you want to ask a question, please use the questions box, which you should be able to see in your control panel on the right of your screen. And I know many of you have found this already because you've been saying hello. So you click on the small arrow to the left of the word questions in order to write and view questions. And you can make this box larger by clicking on the small box with an arrow to the top right of the questions box. The recording of today's webinar will be on our blog and on YouTube next week. We will email you a copy of your attendance certificate the week after the webinar, so don't worry about that. Now, I'm very pleased to welcome David as this afternoon's presenter. David Valente is the coordinator of the IATEFL Young Learners and Teenagers Special Interest Group. He works as a PhD research fellow in English language and literature subject pedagogy at Nord University, Norway, where he also teaches on the 5-year master's degree in primary English education. David has over 20 years experience in ELT as a teacher, teacher educator, academic manager, author and editor, and his specialist interests include children's literature in ELT, primary and secondary teacher education, and inclusive classroom practices. David's publications comprise a recent chapter on syllabus developments in primary ELT for the Routledge Handbook of Teaching English to Young Learners. He is also reviews editor for the Children's Literature in English Language Education Journal, a peer-reviewed online journal for those involved in using and researching children's literature in English learning as a second, additional or foreign language. David is also an author of the new Cambridge course Fun Skills. So after that introduction, over to you, David.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jenny. And I'd like to start by saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. And I see today we have people from France, from Italy, Spain, Poland, Sweden, Iran, Peru, Romania, Vietnam, Pakistan, Turkey, the Philippines. So a real international group we are today, which is excellent. So thank you very much, all of you, for taking time to come to today's webinar. All right, so today I'll be covering these areas. So I'm going to be exploring our dual role as a teacher. So our role as a teacher of children combined or balanced with our role as a teacher of children preparing for exams, because that can often be a challenging role to combine. So we'll be looking at that in quite some detail today. Thinking specifically about preparing children for English exams, we're going to think from the child's point of view and the child's world, and what challenges, what difficulties, what obstacles do children encounter, but also what obstacles might you be encountering as a teacher of exams preparation for children. Then we'll move on and identify good practices or best practices in primary English language teaching. What are good practices and how can we combine these, draw on these, use these in our exam preparation courses? And then we'll think about the balance. Getting the balance right between being a teacher of children and a teacher of exams preparation. What are some top tips and principles that we can use as teachers to strike a good balance? And to illustrate all of the principles I'll be talking about in today's webinar, I'll be sharing examples from the new course Fun Skills of some tasks and activities that you can do to strike that good balance. Okay, so first of all, a little bit more about you. I'd like to know if you could just type in the chat box, do you teach pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, or A2 flyers, or all of them, or none of them? So let's just hear from you. If you could type in the questions box, please. What kind of exams do you prepare children for? Okay, so all of them, Ali Reza, I think quite a few people do, don't they? They teach several of these exams. I see someone, Layla, pre-A1 starters, yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about being a teacher of children and being a teacher of exams. And to do this, I want you to picture in your mind's eye one of the children, or maybe a group of the children, in one of your exam preparation classes. Now, if you don't teach exam preparation classes, but you do teach children, I want you to imagine from the child's point of view, what kind of challenges do you think children have, particularly in an exam preparation context? So just picture those children that you work with on a regular basis and think about what challenges they might encounter. And please type your ideas into the question box. Okay, so the amount of vocabulary, yeah, absolutely. Natalie, yeah. Stressful, yes. Okay. Yeah. Focus, skills development. Yes, so lots and lots of challenges there. So what I did was I asked some groups of teachers that I worked with the same questions, and these were teachers preparing children for pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. And this is what they came up with, these particular challenges. Okay, so the first one then, the pronunciation focus. So as many of you will know, speaking and the development of speaking skills is really important for starters, movers, and flyers. And so we need in our classes a clear focus on pronunciation. But teachers have said to me that the children find this boring, it's too mechanical, it's too repetitive, there's not enough variety going on when they focus on pronunciation. The next one you can see is children struggle to identify links to what's happening in the exam classroom to their lives, to their worlds, to their interests, and to their ages, what they are doing outside of the classroom. That's another key challenge for children. As some of you mentioned, vocabulary and the amount of new vocabulary, and often vocabulary being presented in lists, which is decontextualized, it's not very meaningful for children or memorable. The next challenge, as you can see at the top, is that the lessons are sedentary, so children have to sit still for too long. They're maybe not as active as general English lessons can be and should be for children. And then the last one, the upside down one at the bottom, lessons are not much fun if they are for exam preparation. So these are all very real challenges that children encounter, and these were the top 5 that the teachers I asked identified, the most common ones. And what I'd like to do in this webinar today is think about some real practical ideas to address and alleviate these challenges. Okay. This is also summarized by Andrew Littlejohn here when he talks about the future need for English. Often that's what exam classes focus on, rather than the child in the here and now. So this, we could capture this by describing the difference between becoming, so what a child is becoming in the future, and being. So being a child today in the here and now, my interests, my world, my life as a child is too often ignored in the exams classroom. And that's what Andrew Littlejohn's talking about there. Janie Moon as well, talking about immediate communication needs. So teachers say things to me like, when I say, oh, so why did you decide to focus on that in the exams lesson, perhaps after a lesson observation? They say things like, oh, they'll need this at secondary school. And I say, well, possibly. And then some teachers say, oh, their parents expect them to learn this. And I say, well, maybe. And then they say, oh, they'll need this when they travel abroad, I think. So it's all about this supposed future need, this maybe they need this, rather than starting from the child's world now and today. Also, you have James Bork there talking about how children learn language and what we know from research, and that children learn language holistically. It needs to be in a meaningful and a child-friendly context rather than just bits of language and disjointed items and structures. And this is what you were talking about, some of you before, when you mentioned the volume, the amount of vocabulary they need to learn. So these are real issues for us as teachers of both children and teachers of exam preparation classes. So let's move on then to start to try and address these challenges. And to do this, what I'm suggesting is we need to go back to what we know about best primary practice. What is good practice in teaching English to children? And then how can we use these insights, use this knowledge to apply in our exam classes to make them more age appropriate and more child friendly? Now, I see this very much as a balancing act, and I think this is a useful image for you where to remember, a metaphor, if you like, or an analogy, that when you are thinking about your role in the children's exam classroom, you need to see it a little bit like this balancing on a seesaw, where you have to balance being a teacher of primary and being a teacher exam preparation. How do we strike a good balance? How do we get that balance right? And always questioning that balance, we are being reflective about our practice when it comes to teaching exams and developing children's skills. Okay. So the first one, again, we have from Andrew Littlejohn, and he's talking about best primary practice embeds or includes a focus on language. And by language, I'm talking about grammar structures, lexical items or vocabulary items, and phonological features in child-friendly context. So we need to make sure that we embed it in a context that's meaningful to children. Now, what does this mean for us when we're teaching exams? Well, I think it's very important that we raise children's awareness of useful language chunks in context. And ways we can do this is by using songs and short stories and using creative games and effective activities. And that's affective with an A, to focus children on language. And instead of thinking about phonology, I encourage you to think about phonology. So putting the fun in pronunciation practice as a really important principle. Secondly, we have Lynn Cameron there talking about different entry points. When we're developing children's sub-skills, they all start from a different point. And so we need to make sure in the exam classroom, we have lots of collaboration. We know this from general English, and we need to carry this through to exams. We need to provide different scaffolding that reaches and teaches the different children in our classrooms, developing their sub-skills and giving them real exam strategies, but in a child-friendly way. For example, by making pair work and group work as hands-on as possible. Okay. Now, Sheila Rickson talks about striking the challenging balance of teaching children and developing their language skills, but also remembering that we have our wider educator role where we're developing children's socially, so social development there. Now, a great way to get this balance right, I think, is through personalization, particularly when it comes to the productive skills. So speaking and writing tasks, we should make them as personalized as possible. How can you do this? Well, making sure that whenever you're doing speaking or writing in your English exams lessons, you do give children an element of choice. So give them some choice over what they're writing or what they're talking about. And also encouraging them to respond personally, so valuing their opinion. For example, you've had a song in your lesson or a story in your lesson, you've used images, you've used photographs in your lesson, and you want the children to say how they feel about those, do they like them, why not, and so on, so that their personal response is encouraged, developed, and valued. Okay, then we have Otomo talking about the stress, and a few of you at the beginning of the webinar talked about it being a stressful experience. So we need to do everything we can to diminish, minimize, reduce, and remove the stress of exam preparation for children. And this is all to do with engagement. So we need to use what I call engaging ways in. So you're not going into a lesson cold and saying, for example, okay, so today we are practicing speaking part 1. I mean, immediately with children, you're going to have disengagement if that approach is adopted. And it's stressful because you're focusing on testing and not teaching. So, for example, if you're using a song or you're using a story, have the children join in that song, sing that song, listen to the story, give their opinion on the story before focusing on the exam task. Also, think about ways you can tweak or modify, adapt exam tasks in a way by making them more fun and more physical. So those are two big things I'll be talking about today, making tasks and activities in the exam class fun and physical. And I'll be giving you some examples of ways you can do that in a little while. Okay, so we have David Hayes there talking about when we're designing materials for exam preparation, we have to remember how children learn languages. We can't forget that simply because it is exam preparation. And I think this goes back to what Andrew Littlejohn was saying, and also James Bourke, about packaging language in a child-friendly way. So this is to do as well with remembering how children like to be active in their English lessons. And if you remember, this was one of the key problems that the groups of teachers I work with identified, that exam classes are sometimes not active enough. So total physical response is your friend here. Total physical response, do it as much in an exam class, having children be active, as in a general English class. And so, for example, when you're checking children's understanding, a lot of you mentioned the vocabulary overload in exam preparation courses. So this can be done in non-verbal ways: thumbs up, thumbs down, wave your hands in the air, stand up, sit down, even dancing, you know, depending on your classroom context. But be creative with TPR and make sure you use it regularly and in, you know, often and a lot in exam preparation classes. Then we have Janet Enever there talking about the key in teaching children is to keep their motivation, their passion, their interest in learning English high, because once they lose that, you've lost them. And so One way to do this in the exam class context is by your use of images. And I don't just mean any picture. It's not simply saying, oh, well, I used visuals, that's being child friendly. We need to think what helps children be curious, what makes them, there's a lot of picture use in the starters, movers, flyers exams for the speaking prompts and so on. So we need to make that an engaging experience by using curious images, curious and humorous visuals that make children firstly want to look at the visuals, want to describe what they see, want to compare with their partner. So our choice of image there, the images we're using in the exam class, are super important for the development of a really crucial skill nowadays for children, and not only for children, teenagers as well, and I would say adults, because adults have sometimes forgotten this, is how we interpret images and develop our visual literacy. And I just want to say as well about best practice is to do with assessment, because it's understandable, but as teachers of exam preparation, we can be very focused, obviously, on the exam and that we're preparing children to be successful in the exam, which of course is a key objective. Of course it is. However, we need to remember the process. It's not only about the outcome, it's also about the process. And we need to strike another balance between AOL, so assessment of learning by taking the exam, but balancing with AFL, assessment for learning, where we're monitoring children's progress, we're capturing through our careful and attentive monitoring evidence of not only right answers, but also areas of skill development where children need more support, and we're tweaking our teaching, we're adapting our teaching in response to the children's needs as they emerge during our teaching. So balancing AOL with AFL. Okay. So those are the 6 best practice principles I wanted to share with you, and then help you think about how to put them into practice in an exam class situation. My favorite quote, which captures all of this, everything I've been saying about best practice, comes again from James Bourke. And I think it's a powerful quote, and it's one you should print out and stick by your computer, in your office, in your, on your desk, wherever. But he reminds us about the child's world. Children love fantasy, make-believe, dragons, monsters, talking animals, and alien beings. So again, that's about striking that balance and really anchoring yourself in the child's world. And as we go through the activities now and the tasks that make these ideas very practical, I want you to keep this quote from James Bourke in your mind, because this is our basis for bringing the child's world into our exam preparation classes, because I think it's key to success and very important. All right, so just to pull that all together in a practical way, these are my top 10 recommendations. Okay, first of all, to balance good practice with exam preparation classes, use lots of TPR. Make your lessons as fun and physical as possible by adapting activities and keeping the children active. The next one, think about your ways in. Don't go into exam tasks and exams lessons cold by having a very mechanical focus on the task type, but think about ways to engage children, to get them curious, to get them interested in the topic, in the text, in the song, in the story. Then, one of my favorite ideas is the use of songs. Songs should be plentiful and fun in the exams preparation classroom, and the wackier, the more colourful and creative these songs can be, bearing in mind the children's language level and so on, the better, because obviously that helps make language memorable. It helps give children a reason to focus, to notice language that they can recycle during their exam. The use of chunks. So we've talked quite a bit today already about the importance of giving children useful chunks of language that are high frequency, that they can use throughout the skills. So in listening, reading, they can recognize them, and in writing and speaking, they can use them, not just in the exam prep classroom, but beyond. So that's very important that when it comes to our language learning for skills development, we are chunks orientated and chunks focused. The importance of AFL, assessment for learning, where we're monitoring progress, we're giving children a sense of progress by tweaking and fine-tuning our lessons, bringing us to the next principle of building in extra support. It's crucial to reach and teach all of our learners, so we can't just focus on the children who are going to shine in the exam. We need to think about differentiation and what we can do with tasks to reach all of the children in the classroom. Then we need to be developing sub-skills. So we need to really try and break these skills down and then gradually and progressively build up children's exam strategies in a very practical, very hands-on and concrete way to develop their sub-skills. I mentioned the importance of visual literacy, bringing in lots of engaging images, getting children curious, getting them describing what they see, and getting them to respond to what they see, which leads into our next principle of personalization. Children's voices matter. And children's voices matter just as much in exam preparation as they do in general English, that we need to get their opinions, their views, and respond to their views, ask them why, and so on. And this one I really like is making phonology funology. So making your focus on pronunciation, both fun, child-friendly, and physical. And based on these 10 principles, I'm going to share some tasks and activities of these principles in practice. So I want you to bear those in mind while we go through the different tasks and activities to make these a reality. Okay, now, as I said earlier, I'm taking these examples from the new course Fun Skills. And we're going to start with there are 6 books in the Fun Skills series, and we're going to start with book 1, so pre-A1 starters. How many of you, I wonder, teach pre-A1 starters? Okay, yeah, quite a few of you. Yeah, great. Okay, so what you'll notice straight away from this spread, if we have a look at those 4 pictures then, so you can see it's the rooms of the house, isn't it? So we have the bathroom, the bedroom, the kitchen, and the living room. Very common vocabulary set and topic in the exam, the pre-A1 starters exam. But do you see how we've put it into the context of a wacky song? A bee in the bedroom, a snake in the bathroom, a tiger in the kitchen, a lizard in the living room. So immediately we are appealing to children's sense of fun, playfulness, and curiosity. All of these audios, by the way, are downloadable from the Cambridge website. So if you want to listen, you can see it's book 1, page 52, track 29, listen, point and sing. And this is preparation, as you can see, for the pre-A1 starters listening part 4. And for those of you who teach starters, you'll know that this is actually a vocabulary test, recognition of the names of colours, prepositions of place, and identifying certain objects. But as I said, we need to think about the ways in, and using songs like this, you can see that the children will start singing, they listen, point, and they start singing, and before they know it, they're actually into the exam task. So we're thinking about the ways in there. And then we mentioned the importance of chunks. and embedding chunks within a child-friendly context. So here you see high frequency language like, don't worry, I can help you. Think about those chunks. Don't worry, I can help you. I'm coming. They're very common. They're things that people use not only in an exam situation. And so they've been naturally embedded for children to notice. And by doing the actions to the song, this unlocks meaning for the children. Moving on to the next page then, that's Pre-A1 Starters Speaking Part 1. And for those of you who know it, it's where the child points to 2 object cards, and then there are instructions from the examiner to place them in different locations in a scene. And you see how it is here. This scene has anchored in the child's world. So the children are in the living room there, watching TV, perhaps a family. And you see the child-friendly listening tasks. We've taken out the stress, as Otomo was saying, and we have the child-friendly tasks like listen and do, listen and point, listen and colour. So this all makes it non-daunting. Remember, we said about the importance of personalization, and we can do this by having children respond and have an element of choice. So if you look at the bottom there in the pair work, choose 3 objects, tell your friend to find them. And that's what we mean by tweaking the tasks, tweaking the activities, and giving children that element of choice. So there you see for Pre-A1 starters, those principles in action. Moving on then to the next one. This is also Pre-A1 starters, and this is from book 2. And again, you see the use of song and how using fun and wacky and memorable songs, which you can download, this focuses the children, engages them through that TPR. So the actions, again, makes exam focus engaging and memorable. And so this is for reading and writing part 5. So even though it's reading and writing, we are going into the task through a song. And for those of you who know the exam, reading and writing part 5 is based on a picture story, just as this song is based on a picture story. And then there are 5 questions. And you see here the children have to match, and these are the actions that are happening in the images. And that's why images are so great for structures like the present continuous. And that's such an important one for describing the pictures in the exam. So that this use of a fun song is really preparing the children for not just reading and writing, but also for speaking. And again, you see some fun focus on pronunciation underneath there, where the children have to identify the rhyming words, and also they can color code the rhyming words. Color coding is a great way to get children to notice patterns in the language, patterns in the sounds, patterns in the structures. We talked about the need to provide differentiation, so to reach and teach all of the children in the classroom. And here you can see on the next page a focus on questions. So this is where the children need to write short answers. And our key questions here we have where, how many, and who. So let's think about how are we going to give the children at Pre-A1 starters, so very early language level, how can we give them some extra support and build their strategies in a child-friendly way? So here's a little example for you. So there you see those 3 question words, who, where, how many. And then we have names of people, names of places, and numbers. Now, you could personalize this. You could have names of people that are familiar in the children's context. You can have places that are familiar in the children's town, city, school, and so on. This could be on the board. The children could come up and touch. I've seen teachers do this with fly swats. That's very fun and very physical. And what you're doing is you're saying, for example, Mr. Green, and then the children are swatting who. You could also do this more collaboratively, where you give these out on cards, in sets, on tables, and the children have to hold up or touch the question word. You can hand over control to stronger children, more confident children, who they can call out. And also for those who are even more confident, they could even make their own sets of answers and play the game together. I've color coded it there. As I said, color coding is so important in helping children recognize patterns in language. So we can say to the children, for example, what do the purple ones tell us? Oh, they're about where, a place. What do the red ones tell us? Oh, they're about who, a person. And what do the green ones tell us? Oh, they're about how many. So that kind of color coding is another way to get children to notice these language chunks as they are used. Okay, so that was just a little example of how you can adapt and extend exam tasks and activities to make them more accessible for children and really build strategies. So you're not just testing, you're also doing some clear skills development there. Okay, moving on then to A1 Movers, and this is from book 3. So we have movers, speaking part 1 there, brilliant bodies. Now, as many of you will know, the part of the body is a frequent topic in course books and syllabi for children. But look at how it's made more wacky, quirky, creative here. We have these monster bodies. And this is what we were saying, because this Movers Speaking Part 1 is the spot the difference task, where the children have to look and describe 4 differences. Well, they have to have a reason to look and a reason to want to describe. And looking at a boring photograph is not going to give them that reason. But brilliant bodies, the monsters with all of these wacky mustaches and so on, and all these different colors and legs, gives the children a reason to look. It gives the children a reason to see and describe and to look closely and want to spot the difference. So what we're saying here is it's no good just telling children to spot the difference. We have to design our tasks, design our activities, use visuals that encourage children to actually naturally want to do that. Again, looking at the next page, which again uses the brilliant bodies, grunt and snore with the moustaches, etc. And again, it's listen and color, and also they can color in different ways, which adds that personalized touch. All right, again, this is a way in. So imagine you're going to do this lesson, this brilliant bodies lesson, and we need to get the children interested in the topic. So, you know, there's the classic head, shoulders, knees and toes, or you could adapt it, you could tweak it and make it a little bit more fun with this activity. And this is called body to body. So children work in pairs, they stand up, and the teacher calls out the parts. For example, elbow to elbow, head to head, arm to arm, leg to leg, back to back. You get the idea. Then the teacher can hand over and a child could come out and call the body parts. And then they can work in threes and take turns. And one child says the body parts, arm to arm, hand to hand, thumb to thumb, foot to foot. And the others do the actions, and then they take turns to be the caller and do the actions. So this is what we're saying about incorporating TPR, making it fun, making it physical wherever possible. I've taken from here, this is from the song accompanying the Brilliant Bodies spread, And it's all about those characters, grunt and snore. It's got a long moustache. It's got a curly beard and a long moustache, and so on. So you can do creative things with the lyrics for songs, you know, having the children putting these lines on strips, having the children listen to the song and put the strips in order is a classical one. But also you can work on things like adjective noun order, big teeth, green shoulders, a thin neck, and so on. And you can color code these and have children notice, what are the blue ones? Oh, they are the adjectives. What are the red ones? Oh, they are the nouns. So what comes first? The blue ones are the red ones. So that's, again, raising awareness of word order and so on. And this is a useful chunk. It's gotta. It's gotta. So that's high frequency as well. And it's embedded in the context of the song. If you want the children then to sing this song in groups, in pairs, you can allocate different lines to different children. So maybe your most confident child could have, it's got big teeth, green shoulders, a thin neck, a curly beard, and a long moustache. And then perhaps other children who are not so confident could have, it's got a long moustache, and so on. So just really think about ways to maximize these lyrics, to get the maximum mileage and use out of the content for differentiation. And it's differentiation by making small tweaks to the material without having to, you know, have 3 different lesson plans happening at the same time. These are small ways that you can build in differentiation to the lesson material. All right, this is also movers, and this is from book 4. So here we have the movers reading and writing part 6. And for those of you who teach movers, you'll know that this is a sentence completion task and short answers. So school is another very common topic in course books, but now we see a little bit of a twist. Dream school. And this goes back to what James Bork was talking about the child's world of make believe. So it's not simply my everyday school, it's my dream school. And some of this is really wacky. A school in a cinema, a school in the jungle, a school in the circus, and all of that, you will notice, is core movers vocabulary embedded. So we're really anchoring, we're putting the context in the child's world of make-believe, of fantasy and fun. And we're really encouraging them to respond personally to this context. And we talked about how personalization is so crucial. And the children are asked to say, which school would you like to visit? And there's no right answer here because it's completely personal choice and personal response. Tell your friend. So talk to your partner about your view. So always building, and this is obviously a reading and writing task, but personalization is important for speaking and writing, but also for reading and responding to the topic of the text. We notice on the next page the character Sage the squirrel. And we said we need to remind children about key exam strategies. So here we have 4 speech bubbles about the children's schools, Asa, Philip, Andreas, and Kanya. And the Sage the squirrel reminds the children, underline the answers in the bubbles. Now, underlining where you found the answer in a text is a really useful exam strategy for the reading. But here it's a character encouraging the children to do that, rather than it always coming from the teacher. The character encourages the child to copy the spellings correctly. Again, another useful exam strategy. Sticking with the dream school context, it's really important that you provide some crossover, that we make links with what we're teaching between the 4 skills. And the song does this. It takes the content from the reading and writing focus and then puts it in a listening and ultimately a speaking through the song. So this song is again the 4 children singing about the dream school with key movers vocabulary. So you see brilliant, cinema, so the nouns are there, the adjectives are there, and that's all very useful because it provides scaffolding or support for a personalized writing task about my dream school. But again, in a very playful way. So the children choose their classroom, could be a fun fair. They choose their teachers, maybe they are aliens, and their clothes, maybe they're jeans and t-shirts, which all might sound a bit, you know, off the wall, but that's the child's world, and that's what matters when we are really trying to reach and teach. Okay, so moving on then. This is for A2 flyers. So for those of you who do flyers prep, and this is a way to do that crossover where you're linking the different skills. And this is using pronunciation in a fun way. So again, these are on cards, could be on the board, could be on the tables. And as you can see, the children are looking for the rhyming words. They need to say them together and then find the rhyming ones. And for time, I've color coded for you so you can see the colors that match are obviously the rhyming words: now, cow, beach, peach, shark, park, and so on. So the children have raised their awareness. They've had some indirect ear training, as I call it. They've sensitized to the rhyme. And they're going to use these words as a prediction task for a song. Now, this song is all about me. This comes from book 5, Fun Skills book 5, and it's preparation for A2 flyers, reading and writing part 2. Now, this is where the children complete a dialogue with multiple responses. So you see the items for completion are questions. Questions at the bottom: which games do you like to play? Which places would you like to see? Which music do you think sounds cool? So the dialogue, to be child-friendly, engaging, and anchor in their world, is put in the song. The children use those rhyming words to predict the answers to the song. So can you tell me your favorite color? Well, that one obviously links back to blue, for example. So it shows how we're trying to cross over between the different skills and raise their awareness and use pronunciation. This is actually using pronunciation to support reading and writing. So we need to really think in a creative way. On the next page, again, for the A2 Flyers speaking part 1, you see there is also lots of personalization there. So where they interview a friend, but actually they could choose a persona, they could choose a character, maybe a character from TV, one of their favorite animation characters, whoever it might be, and they can invent a persona. So again, there's the element of tweaking to make it more personalized, creative. And then finally, we have book 6. So here we have another popular course book topic, animals, but with a bit of a twist. So here we have in the jungle with creative or unusual context to develop that visual literacy and get the children curious. So here you can see the footprints, the animal footprints, which is quite an unusual way to get the children focused on the topic. So they have to really notice those details in the photograph and then guess, predict which animal made those footprints. And that close, careful, noticing those small details is a really useful exam task for the speaking exam that uses visual prompts for the flyers. Then, for those of you who teach flyers, you'll know that reading and writing part 7 is where the children write a short story. based on 3 picture prompts. And again, making this child friendly, you can see the artwork, the visuals are really humorous. It's a fancy dress party where the children, the family members are dressed up as animals. So this again gives the children a reason to write, that they want to write the story because it's fun. Okay, and to provide scaffolding for that, linking the different skills, before writing, we have speaking, where we brainstorm, we generate our story ideas in pairs. So there's that peer support incorporated as well. So when we're developing skills, we do need to integrate the 4 skills in a principled way that provides useful scaffolding. Okay, so to pull all of that together then, these are the key messages today. When we are preparing children for exams, we need to think about ways in, that we don't go in cold, that we engage, we activate, we encourage children to be curious. Through using child-friendly contexts like songs and short stories, we want to highlight useful chunks of language for children, not just to have them notice them, but also use them. And we can do that with our focus on fun and physical phonology, which is the principle underneath. The other one, tweak or adapt exam tasks where possible by making them more fun and more physical. Using songs. Songs are one of my favorite ways to feed in or give children exam language in an accessible way and in a memorable way, which is so important for the speaking skills and the writing skills development. Provide different support. So think about how you can tweak your tasks and activities to reach not only the strongest children in the class, but also all of the children in the class, and providing peer support and lots of collaborative work, making it hands-on, making it physical and practical as possible. Fostering or developing visual literacy skills, so rich visual use in the exam classroom is really important. So you bring in photographs, images, pictures that are going to get the children curious and get them want to look, describe, compare, and give opinions on. The next one, provide plenty of crossover between the skills. So when you're working on reading and writing, you're also providing useful support that can be recycled, used again for listening and speaking, and vice versa. And very importantly, making sure that for all of our tasks where possible, we build in some personalization that's relevant and meaningful to the individual child by giving an element of choice wherever possible and really encouraging them to respond, to give their views, to give their ideas. And by using these principles, drawing on good practice, we're able to really develop children's skills in the exams classroom in a much more genuine way. My message I'd like to leave you with today before we stop for some questions is develop skills, and also while doing that, have fun. These are my references. Lots of those are available to freely download. A few of you were asking about the James Bork reference, for example. That's from the ELT journal. You can see that there. British Council references are mostly freely downloadable from the Teaching English website. Okay. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of you for listening and for participating today, and handing back over to Jenny. Thank you so much.
Many thanks for such an interesting session, David. As mentioned earlier, to all of you who've attended, we will send you your attendance certificate by email next week. Now, we don't have too much time left, but does anyone have any questions? If you want to start typing these in the question box, then David will try to take as many of these as possible. I'm just trying to move the slides on. While you're waiting, just a quick word about the book Fun Skills, which David has taken some examples from. I'm just trying to get my slides to move on here. Okay, so David's one of the authors of this new 6-level series called Fun Skills. And this book provides fun preparation for pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers, and it covers all of the skills kids need to be ready on exam day. It's a paired book approach, 2 books for each exam level, and it's a short course designed to supplement another course book or to be used in short exam preparation classes or summer schools. It doesn't present the language that would be covered in a main English course that the children are using. Fun Skills practices language through these skills-based tasks and really helps to develop these skills and allow students to communicate confidently through listening, speaking, reading and writing. And all of the characters that you can see there in the covers were designed by real students. They're bringing the learning to life and making the skills fun. We also have a dedicated website for those teaching young learners. It's called World of Fun. Here you can find lots of resources and information for this age group. This includes teaching tips videos, articles, story videos, webinar recordings, creative drama activities, and writing booklets. You can also view our full range of official preparation materials for pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. So, okay, hopefully you've had a chance to think about your questions. We'll just see what we've got time for now. David, over to you. David?
Yes, I'm just looking for questions, Jenny. Can you see any there?
Right, let's have a little look through. Any questions on David's content that anyone wants to type in? Or questions about other ideas? I can see a few about the books themselves. So someone has asked, can we use the books Fun Skills with Superminds? And the answer is yes, it would be a good fit with a course like Superminds, 1 book per level. Other questions? Are there workbooks for the children? There's a home booklet which students can take home, and it helps bridge the gap between school and home. Extra skills practice. There are fun boost activities to share with the family and stories with the characters. So that's what we get with the home books. There are also mini trainers that come with the course that have 2 practice tests with guided task practice, little animations that pop up to help students with the exam tasks. Okay, you can find more information about the books on cambridge.org/funskills. Does anyone have any questions for David? We had lots of questions in yesterday's webinar, but maybe he was very comprehensive, so hopefully you got plenty out of it.
I'd just like to add about the home booklet, because a lot of teachers around the world are very familiar with the workbook, which reinforces the content in the student's book. But the home booklet for Fun Skills is different. And it's to encourage children to extend and consolidate in an engaging way with their families and with friends at home. So it's not a book of exercises like many workbooks. There's a lot of very creative tasks. There's a lot of art and craft in there, when sometimes we don't get time, particularly in the exams class, for things like art and craft. The home booklet is a great way to do that, and it links to the topics and to the language that's covered in the class. But it's an engaging and a fun and are light, so it's not onerous or heavy, doesn't feel like homework, for example, but it's a great consolidation way outside of the classroom. It's quite different from a classic workbook. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, good points. There's lots of interactive activities in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so from Olga, we've got thanks a lot, very useful tips. From Maitran, we've got thank you so much, David, for your clear, informative presentation with lots of useful teaching tips. So we've got lots of takeaway value there from people.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah, it looks as if that's all we've got time for today. But don't forget to check our events page for details of our upcoming webinars, which you can visit at cambridge.org/ELT events. Next week on 19th and 20th of March, we have Monty Watkins speaking on phonics called Sounds Fun, Looks Right. This is another webinar, which is great for teachers of young learners. And also available is going to be the recording of last week's webinar by Claire Medwell on Picture Perfect, bringing the young learner classroom to life, which you'll be able to find on cambridge.org/wobble, WOBL. And the recording of today's webinar should be live on our blog and YouTube next week. And as mentioned before, you'll all be sent a copy of your certificates if you've attended, and a recording of this webinar if you want to share it with colleagues. So thank you all again for coming. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you, David, for such useful content.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everyone.